Look, it's good in the near term, right? And I think you'll see a relief in the stock, and it's part of why GM's up, right? Because as more of these things happen, discipline, that's what the street wants to see. Now, with that said, if you look longer term, it's not good. I mean, the reason Mary, Paul, and the team were so focused on Cruise is because autonomous is the future. So ultimately, for them to go down the route of autonomous, there's really only going to be one way, red phone to Musk, right? In terms of, some sort of, deal with Tesla. So I think, again, good in the near term, but it's a lot harder than it seems to build an autonomous vehicle.
Yeah, no, yeah, it sure seems that way. So, but they appear to be taking that technology and fusing it into what, Super Cruise. Are we looking at a day where, sure, maybe they don't have robo-taxis, Dan, but is the Corvette of the future fully autonomous?
Look, I think the reality is like, and however they put in the press release, I mean, this is probably the beginning of the end for Cruise. I mean, in some form. I mean, they'll have that technology in some way, but I think this is their putting up the white flag, in terms of this. And then, look, from a street perspective, look what's going on with GM. I mean, you got tax credits that are going to get pulled once Trump gets in. That's going to force more and more discipline toward hybrid. Maybe peeling back the EV strategy. Cruise, clearly that, we've seen what's happened there. So you're seeing more and more discipline. Again, great for the stock, but the reality is over the longer term, it's really about the growth initiatives, and that remains, I think, still in flux.
Why do we need robo-taxis, Dan? Is it to just play on our phones and let these cars drive by ourselves? Why are these so important?
Look, a lot of it is just about the human driver versus robot. If you think about autonomous technology, much safer, right? I mean, I think that at the end of the day, when you see autonomous technology over the coming years, and I believe end of the decade, you could have 10-15% of what we'll call ride shares, whether it's Cybercab or others, will not have a driver. So you won't have someone actually talking on the phone trying to text while they're driving you somewhere. The reality is that autonomous is the future. And I think you're going to see more and more, and we talk about with Tesla, it's a big reason. The autonomous future is going to be significant. I think Tesla continues to lead it, and that's why that stock's been up so much since Trump's got in, because it changed the whole game from a regulatory.
You know what's really interesting, Dan, is this has been a really good year for General Motors. The products are on point. I went out and bought one of their new products. I mean, it's an amazing experience. I walk into the car, it has my CarPlay. I mean, the car is like 500 horsepower. I mean, it's an amazing.
I see you with that yellow Corvette.
Yeah, well, let's just take that offline. Look, the reality is I should have some sports cars. I mean, I have no kids, and this is what I do. All I do is work, Dan. But look, I mean, I think they've done a good job. Like, they've improved their models. But what really has surprised me is how much cost they've taken out of their business, and I would argue that changes the investment thesis on a company like GM, no?
Well, that's how the stock. Has had such a massive run, right? Because you could argue over the last few years, GM was run like a federal agency in the Beltway, and not in a good way, right? So the point is, like, why discipline? Look, I think Paul is a great CFO. And also, I think part of it is like they had to look in the mirror and make some tough decisions. UAW clearly forced some of that. But I think the other thing that's happened with the stock is that you still have an investor in GM, EV to EBITDA, valuation.
It looks so cheap. I mean, this is a single-digit PE multiple stock. Go to Yahoo Finance, hit the statistics page. I'm shocked. I'm shocked GM's trading at these levels.
But I'm telling you, if you start to get some sort of disruptive multiple, and they show some legit success on EVs, like I'm talking over the next few years, I mean, this is a stock that could easily double conservatively from here as it all plays out. And I think that's where, like, Mary, the board, I think, look, they also got burned too, right? I mean, bet huge in Biden administration, bet huge in the infrastructure, never came. And now they're going to have to make some significant changes, which I think in the near term is probably positive.
You think Tesla is going to make millions of robo-taxis, and next year we finally start to see some of these on the road?
I think by 26, you'll see them. I think Look, it goes back to just because the Bears, they can see AI in the spreadsheets, right? So when they're sitting deep in those caves in hibernation mode, that's how they've missed out on every transformational tech name in the last 20 years. Tesla will be no different. It's not a car company. More and more, it's not going to be valued on traditional EVs. It's about the autonomous future. We think autonomous is worth $1 trillion alone.
Dan, when you're not running around and globetrotting and going to conferences, I mean, I imagine you're still crunching a lot of numbers. I mean, when you look at Tesla, how do you bake in an Elon Musk involved in the government? Is it a higher multiple you assign the company? How do you even think through that?
Well, I think the best, first look at full self-driving. Like, we're just about FSD. Forget autonomous for a second. 7 million vehicles. Let's say penetration from an FSD goes from 15% to 50, 60%. Well, what does that do to the margins of the? I mean, you could argue that earnings doubles, over the next few years, right? From a Tesla perspective. And FSD is key because of the software piece, because of the attach rate. And I'll compare it no different than, like, for many years, Apple, no credit for services. That's how you go from 1 to almost 4 trillion, right? I mean, service has been a huge part of the value. Tesla, no different. FSD, it's about the attach rate. Then you start thinking about autonomous. I mean, I view, like, cyber cabs, they're going to OEM some of that technology. Think about what's happening with GM. How they're going to get autonomous? They're eventually going to have to OEM Tesla. The autonomous future is key to the stock. But it goes back to, like, the Bears never gave credit for AWS for Amazon. Now look. Never gave credit for services for Apple. Now look. Never gave credit for AWS, for Azure, and for only cloud for Microsoft. Now look in the Dell and Mount Rushmore. NVIDIA, they were arguing, why are you spending money on AI in 22? You should spend money on gaming. Now look. It comes down to, look, the Bears, they don't see AI in the spreadsheet, even though they're wearing the fleece and those sleeves, right? So the point is, like, even though they sound smart, bulls make money. And I think as we go into 25, it continues to be 10 p.m. in the AI party.
So look.
That goes to 4 a.m.
Let's feed into that bear narrative. I look into next year, Dan. I see a Trump administration that might be friendly towards good old-fashioned gas-guzzling cars and trucks. I look at a Trump administration that may yank the EV tax credit. That can't be good for Tesla.
That's music to the ears of Tesla. And Musk is going to be a big proponent of doing that. Because ultimately, as you do that, it evens the playing field. They don't get now the credits, and ultimately, like, in terms of what you see coming out of Detroit Big Three, they don't get those credits. Who's the only one that could be profitable at scale and scope? Musk, Tesla. So I could argue negative for the EV industry, bullish for Tesla. And that's why right now the bromance between Musk and Trump, it is going to have significant implications positive for Tesla, and it continues to be the bet for the ages that Musk made on Trump.
Dan, we're about 10 minutes into this, and you and I haven't even mentioned Ford. Now, where's I know you're not an auto analyst, but you follow the space closely. Where is Ford in this discussion? You have a GM really coming out blasting next year, a lot of new models. You have Elon effectively running a large part of government, Tesla and SpaceX. So where does Ford play into the future of autos?
Look, Ford, first of all, the debt, a lot of the cost, Farley definitely has an uphill battle there, right? I mean, I think GM is a much more ideal position because of where they are in Ultium. They control their own battery costs. They build out their own factory. Look, Ford, they're kind of in between. I mean, you also look at, like, F-150 Lightning. I think, some softer demand there. I think this is going to be a key 12 to 18 months for Ford. Stellantis, obviously, the super negative. We saw what happened.
Stellantis is a disaster. I mean, I used to own a Dodge Challenger, a 2018. I sold it. Thing had 20,000 miles, and the weather stripping started to fall off. I'm like, this is a piece of crap. I got rid of it. I mean, I don't think they make good cars, Dan.
Look, I mean, again, you could argue that if you're a Jeep and bullish there, but
Jeep
the
is terrible.
point
I had a
is,
Jeep too. It's bad. Don't even get me going. That
no,
was a piece of crap.
but the point is, look, GM, you put in a different category than Stellantis and Ford. I think Farley, this is kind of a make or break year. But I think the biggest decision in Ford is the EV strategy. More and more, do they focus on hybrid? And it goes back to you can't cut your way to growth.
It's a good point, Dan. All right, hang with us. We're going to go off for a quick break. We're going to drive beyond, pun intended, this auto discussion. I want to focus a lot on tech. We'll be right back on Opening Bid. All right, having a fun around the horn chat. Wedbush's omnipresent analyst, Dan Ives. The guy's everywhere. So he's finally coming on the Opening Bid podcast. We spent about 12 minutes talking on all things autos, General Motors, Tesla, a little Ford, and how my Jeep basically was a piece of garbage. Now let's do a little around the horn on some of these tech stocks that the Yahoo Finance community loves. I'm going to save NVIDIA and the Mag 7 to the end, Dan. I could use about 2 minutes on Palantir. Any given morning, I wake up about 2:40 a.m. First thing I check, 3 a.m. is the interest on our platform and like what people are searching for, stories, tickers, every day. Palantir. You cover Palantir. What is the outlook for this company, and why do you think investors remain so obsessed with this company?
I remember the street's super negative. I mean, if you think about it, most analysts, institutional, they hate it as a teenager, right? Despise it as a senior citizen living in Delray Beach. So the point is, they've hated it from 13.75, and they'll hate it to 150. I mean, the point is, because it keeps going there. I just want to make a broader theme. The bears that missed out on every transformational tech theme in the last 20 years, waiting for some black swan event on a Sunday morning on Twitter at 3 a.m. What they've missed in Palantir and CARP, it's one of the best technologies ever to come out. And now we talk about NVIDIA and GPU, new oil, gold. What they've come out with AIP, it's now going after enterprise. My view on Palantir is they could be the next Oracle, the next Salesforce. I mean, that's where I see this going over the next 5-10 years. Who's the next Oracle? I think Palantir.
If you're calling Palantir the next Oracle or Salesforce, I mean, that's a big call. And my first thought is, despite the run, Palantir's stock might still be undervalued.
But that's our view. I mean, our view on Palantir is, many will be, it's expensive on next year earnings. They said the same thing about Salesforce, Apple, Amazon, Meta. The point is, where is it over the next 3, 4, 5 years as they built out AIP on the enterprise? The AI revolution, we're talking about trillions of AI CapEx. How are you going to build the use cases? It starts with Palantir. Now, obviously, in that party, 10 p.m. going to 4 a.m., Salesforce Benioff behind the velvet ropes led him into the party. ServiceNow is in the party. Now that you're starting to see more software players in that party, and if you look, it's really Palantir that's led that. And I just continue to view this as a name. The street is still. I mean, I probably spend every day talking to a few institutional clients walking through Palantir bull case, because it goes back to many hated and almost embarrassed to look at as a teenager, despise as a senior citizen.
Well, it's hard, right? It's got to be damn hard to be a bear on a momentum name like Palantir, Dan, right? This is probably one of the ultimate Trump stock picks, no?
But it goes back to the bears. It keeps, look, they don't see AI in the spreadsheet from the 10th floor of the New York City office building. Sounds smart, but for someone like ourselves, 3 million air miles later, 20 years, when you see it around the world, you have a different perspective than that 10th floor New York City office building. So the point is, when you look at Palantir and you go to the boot camps and you see the technology and you understand the vision from CARP, that's why CARP, along with Jensen, godfather of AI, along with, what I believe, Nadella and others, Mount Rushmore of AI.
Speaking of Mount Rushmore, you like those agents that Mark Benioff is working on? I just talked to him about a week and a half ago after earnings. I mean, he's fired up. He just signed 200 deals on AI agents.
But look, I mean, Brian, you focus on it so much too. It's like, it's just the start. When you think about AI revolution, 10 p.m. the AI party. Now we're going toward the software phase, the use case. Benioff, you think he's going to